Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast.
Greetings. This is Hugh Ballou. Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Every week we have a guest that has knowledge and wisdom and experience in a topic. And these are people that have been there, done it, and they've got some things to share with you. You're sitting in the seat as clergy, nonprofit leader, board chair. Maybe you're a business person and you're thinking about launching a nonprofit. Well, this series is to help you think out of the box, think of some new paradigms, and to learn from people who are experienced. Today, my guest is from St. Louis, Missouri, and he's the author of this book, 5 Minutes for Fundraising, and the subtitle is A Collection of Expert Advice from Gifted Fundraisers. Martin, is it Leifeld? I didn't ask you how to pronounce your name.
Yeah, I pronounce it Leifeld.
Okay, so welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Would you tell people a little bit about yourself and why is it that you do what you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, of course, Hugh, it's an honor to be on your program. Thanks so much, and I appreciate your audience very much. Hope I can be helpful. So I've been probably 45 years doing in various kind of leadership roles. 25 years of those were in small and larger universities. And also 25 years, although they didn't overlap exactly with the universities, I've been involved in fundraising. And about 2 years ago, I retired after 10 years as Vice Chancellor for Advancement at the University of Missouri St. Louis, which is our local urban land-grant university here in St. Louis, and had a wonderful run there. Long story short, here in the St. Louis region, which is where I spent my 25 years of fundraising, over 500 million raised. That's a lot of money for St. Louis. But it's not about the dollars raised, it's about the involvement and the lives changed, the impact because of the dollars raised. 2 years ago, I retired, Hugh, and it wasn't my timing, to be honest with you. Health issues, it's the way things go. But my handle in the last couple of years has been author, coach, consultant, and speaker. A little bit of everything. I think you know what I mean. And I have a website, martinleifeld.com. People want to look through that. There's over 125 videos on fundraising and on leadership. You were kind enough to point out the book. I've been doing podcasts, as I mentioned, a couple dozen podcasts and regular postings, particularly on LinkedIn. I have a large following. So I'm trying to give back. This is all about trying to give back to a profession that's been such a blessing for me, so good for me in so many respects. I've grown as a person, certainly developed professional skills, but I've grown as a person by doing this really extraordinary work of fundraising.
Just so you know, we have in the audience 2 fundraisers who are CFRE fundraisers. So they're here because they heard about you, and we'll let them ask questions a little bit later.
I'm beginning to sweat, you.
No. They're very nice people.
I hope so.
I had a funding professional on last month, and he said he buys a fundraising book a week and reads it.
Gosh.
My take on, my area is transformational leadership, and the conductor, what does the conductor know about leadership? Well, we know about leadership. And the best leaders I work with in corporate or nonprofit leader, the people that are always working on themselves.
Yeah.
And, this is the famous speaker, Jim Rohn, always said, work on yourself harder than you work on your business. And so I wrote that down many years ago, and I'm still working on it. 73, I got a lot of way to go. So,
I'm impressed by somebody that would read a book weekly. I talk about, in fact, there's a chapter in the book called The 3 C's of Fundraisers. And if I might, Hugh, there's three C's. The first is competence. If you want to be involved in fundraising and being somebody of impact that makes a difference, you have to develop competency. And there's really two ways you do that. One is lifelong learning. You're a student of the game, you're a student of the practice, and that could include certifications and the like. You mentioned two CFREs in the audience, which makes me nervous. And so you go to webinars like this, podcasts, and so on and so forth to remain educated and current in the field. But book learning, that kind of learning alone, doesn't make you an impactful person in the work of philanthropy. You have to add to that experience. And in any profession, if you're working diligently and you're learning, being humble as you work your way through successes and failures, you should acquire the kind of experience that makes that all that study that you do really come to life and have its be most virtuous, you might see. But that's just competence. You have to have confidence. And confidence is not bravado, it's not faking it till you make it. Real confidence grows alongside that whole development of competence. But to get to your point, this is a long way of getting to your point. One of your points is the third C is character. So what donors want is they want somebody who's competent. They want to recognize a competent professional that's doing their work with excellence, and that have that quiet confidence that comes over the course of time. But what they're really looking for is people of outstanding character, people who are virtuous, people who are trustworthy, people who you might say they know they can do business with, they can shake hands with and make something happen. And if you don't have all three operating, I don't think you can be certainly a master in any profession, right?
Absolutely. So I had earmarked a few things, and page 51 has, I'm not supposed to do, but I'm folded down the page because I didn't have your card in the other one. So the three C's of fundraising. So I want to talk to you about the more correlation between leadership and fundraising. But did you just sit down one day and say, I'm going to write a book? What was the inspiration, and how did you connect? You got a bunch of people in here, and I guess they're all very experienced fundraising professionals.
You might find this story curious. Since I turned 30, and every consecutive decade since, on the 9th, the 29th, 39th, 49th, 59th, I would use that year and very deliberately to reflect on my life up to that point, trying to honestly look at both success but also failures, places for improve, and to look at the next 10 years and try and project out what can I do with these next 10 years to have impact. So 6 years ago, I was 59. And I should say every decade, I got more intense about this too. But when I was 59, I was really working through that year, and I decided in that spring to take 100 days and really drill down about the future. And every day on my journal, day 1/100, day 15/100, I began my journal, and I journal as part of my morning rituals every morning, literally. And seeking ahead, you might say, and believe it or not, a long day around day 72, 73, and 75, I have the journal. I had what I called, with a small I, inspirations. And the inspiration, as I referred to a few minutes ago, was to give back to the profession, that I wanted to start there. And I thought, I had done so much mentoring and coaching and fundraising with staff and volunteers and so on. And I was very good at doing something briefly. So somebody asked a question, and as you can tell, I can go on for more than 5 minutes, but in 5 minutes, I could do a really good answer that would be appreciated. And I thought, maybe I could do some brief videos, because people don't want to watch long videos. And then I thought, not everybody wants to watch a video, let alone looking at me for 5 minutes. People prefer to read. So I thought, let me do both. And so this book was actually, the genesis of this book, logistically, you might say, is transcribing my first year and a half of videos on these very subjects. Well, Hugh, you may know this, many, I would guess your audience may as well, but you know, 5, 6, 7 minutes of video, especially at the speed I talk, which is kind of slow, that only translates to a few pages. Well, I got into this and I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to have a book. And the other part of it was I never tried to give a comprehensive answer about something. It was more like stuff I've noodled about, experimented with, discovered in the course of my years as a fundraiser that I thought was helpful. And so that's what prompted me to go out and recruit ultimately 26 others to join me as collaborators in this. And it was a fun experience, Hugh, because, you know, maybe 60% of them I knew, some very, very well. But the others I went out and recruited based on kind of word of mouth and reference. And I had to, you know, establish a relationship with them, you know, like a donor, and ask them for their assistance and so on. And I found, you know, overwhelming willingness to be supportive.
Wow. Yeah, there's 26 of them here, all by name. Each chapter says collaboration.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit about how collaboration works for you and how it manifests itself in the book. It's interesting how you have the sections in each chapter with the dots and then italics to stand apart, where there's a dialogue.
Well, so what I was trying to do was, like I said, say something about the particular subject, an insight, an angle that had, you know, kind of I had come to realize through experience and effort and training. But then I wanted to enrich it. And so I tried to find people, and I called them collaborators. In other words, I wanted to start with what I had to say about a particular subject, and then ask them to add to it. And nobody really directly contradicted me as a collaborator, but they collaborated in the sense that they took the content seriously and then enhanced it with their own reflections. Many of them added stories that are just, you know, kind of putting the flesh on the bones of the point of the chapter. And they, you know, and it was interesting, you know, some people, if I had asked them to write it, they wouldn't have written it. They're too busy. So I had somebody help me interview them. And then, you know, so we kind of came to it in different ways based on the needs and the availability and the interests of my collaborators. So I tried to collaborate logistically, just practically, in order to have them help, but they were very generous with their time. And the thing about this word collaboration is, you know, the goal is a joint thing we do together. The goal is to bring the best of more than one person to bear in order to, as you talk about with synergy with your organization, to get that synergistic gain, to get that exponential gain that you can't in and of yourself necessarily. Even if you're an authority, have your CFRE, those of you who are in the audience, and so on.
You know, people introduce me sometimes, you know, at a keynote. Here's Hugh Ballou, he's an expert in leadership. And I get up, I'm Hugh Ballou, I'm a serious student of leadership.
Yeah, you're here.
You're here. So I want to ask about a couple more things, and I want to talk about our title of this is, you know, fundraising in this tough time in our COVID-19 world, in our post-COVID-19 world. There are some consistent things, and there's some new thoughts for what we ought to do. So that chapter with leadership, the 51, the C's, 3 C's, and your collaborator said he also liked going ABC. Let me start with authenticity, belief, and confidence.
Yeah.
So you and I were talking before we went live about how fundraising is terrifying for a lot of us.
Right.
I don't want to go. It's like when I was a teenager and wanting to call a girl for a date. I didn't want to get turned down. So I just stand by the phone and sweat. Is that a similar thing with nonprofit leaders and clergy wanting to make a money call? Well, what is it about money that's so fearful?
Well, what is it about money that's so fearful? Well, you know,
Or trying to raise money, rather specifically, yes.
Yeah, to try and raise money. I don't know. You know, I think it's the fear of the unknown. It's all about fear, right? It's the fear of the unknown. It's fear of being rejected, the fear of fumbling your way through it, the fear of somebody being rude to you. If you bring somebody with you, the fear that you'll be embarrassed in front of them or in some way embarrass them. It's something new. I haven't done it before. Now, for those who are in religious kind of work, well, it's unseemly, right? It's unseemly. I shouldn't have to do that kind of thing as a pastor. Leave that to somebody else to do. And so there's a lot of things. And when I first got into major gift fundraising, this is here in the St. Louis area, but I would crisscross Southern Illinois, a largely rural area, sometimes driving an hour, hour and a half to see somebody. And I would be talking about sweating bullets. I would rehearse, half the trip, Hugh, would you and Mary consider a gift, for the education of poor elementary kids, a gift of $10,000, and you could even pay that over 3 years, Hugh. Would you do? Well, I would say that over and over and over again, Hugh, because I couldn't trust myself. And when I first began to do it and I fumbled, it was a long drive back knowing I hadn't done what I set out to do. So I began to rehearse very, very seriously. Because once I got in the home or the office, who knows what might happen and be something I couldn't predict. But all I had to do is say Hugh and Mary, and out would come the rest because I had rehearsed it so often. So for those of you who are thinking about, or you're being called upon to raise money, look, practice makes perfect. You can do it. But let me shift this to something more serious. Fundraising is a privilege. And fundraising is the most honorable of work. Fundraising is a spiritual work. Fundraising is actually a vocation. And I came to this once. I was talking to a woman, very wise woman, and I was talking about fundraising and the struggles. And she said, Martin, you're in a helping profession. Well, a helping profession. I'd never thought of it that way. And I thought, well, you think, especially now, physicians, nurses, first responders, educators. Oh my gosh, the young families, 2 of my kids are educating kids at home, and they have a manifold appreciation of what it takes to be an educator now that they're trying to do it, in their living rooms and around the kitchen table. But I hadn't thought of fundraising, my profession, as being something that was actually about helping. And that's what it is. Because what we do as fundraisers is, in effect, we're facilitators. I like to refer to myself, to our folks in this work, as facilitators of philanthropy. What we do is on behalf of worthy causes, we stand on behalf of those causes. But in effect, what we want to do is come alongside, almost put our arm around the shoulder of someone's, and say, look, there's an opportunity that makes sense to you as I've gotten to know you, and through which you can demonstrate great impact on this world. And here's the idea, would you consider it? And that kind of work is very, very powerful and honorable work. I've had people, and I've had the privilege, as many of perhaps your audience have had, of interacting with some people of extraordinary success, Fortune 25 executives. And I've had some of those people say to me, Martin, I could never do that job. That is too hard a job. And some of them knew it firsthand, Hugh, because, they were chairmen of nonprofits, they were board members, they were called upon to go out and do it. And they knew firsthand what it was like that I was doing full time. And they respected it. And that's another way, we underestimate the value, the contribution that we're making in this work.
Wow, that's a paradigm shift. Somewhere, and it may be in this chapter 5, generous fundraisers, where you start talking about, before we reflect more about donors, let's consider you as the fundraiser. But somewhere you talk about, I want to hear about that, but somewhere you talk about the impact it has on donors to actually donate.
Right.
And I'm going to ask Bob and Jeffrey to come in and talk in the second half of our conversation. They're professional fundraisers, career people, also retired. Well, do you ever retire? I am what I am. So let's take that word off the chart. So there, you talk about how important it is for a donor to. There's a part of philanthropy, and I'll ask Bob to ask you about that. But there's a part of philanthropy that it releases something in you to make that donation and see something happen. Talk about that a little bit, because that's an inspiration that we don't think about the impact it has on the donor.
Right. So, first of all, it's all about the donor. And I think what we tend to do is we want to focus on ourselves. And in one sense, we should, because we want to be professional and effective and do the job with excellence. And we also want to represent our organizations with integrity and, as effectively as we can. But it's really all about the donor. And what we're into is a business of building relationships, lifelong relationships. We're not just after a transaction. We want to build and support the relationship that the donor has with the organization for their lifetime, hopefully. And in that process, in that relationship building, there are opportunities for financial exchange. And what this is about, again, it's not about a transaction, although, writing a check or, giving away stock or giving a document that demonstrates there's a bequest commitment, all that's part of it. But what it's really about is helping people to influence the world for the better and to demonstrate their values and what matters most to them. Well, in that process of a donor taking their eyes off of themselves and looking outward, looking at, okay, I've been blessed, I've been fortunate enough to have accrued these assets, these resources. Now, rather than being preoccupied with how I could take care of myself, I'm going to give it to others or to the world to improve it. As they do that, they become greater people. And, biochemically, by the way, we change. Enzymes are released. One person called it the family bonding enzyme. I used to notice, Hugh, that somebody would make a big gift to one of my organizations, and they would say, suddenly I would look, they'd be everywhere. They'd be at every event. They'd be bringing friends. They'd be bringing colleagues. They'd be talking about the organization with great enthusiasm. I used to think, well, what's this all about? Well, what would happen is by their making this serious commitment, a gift of greater significance, there actually was something that happened within their entire being. And, a wise man, as you know, once said, it's better to give than to receive. And there is something that we receive, this internal, if you might say it, spiritual is another way to put it, reward by giving of ourselves generously. And one of the ways we give ourselves generously, certainly in this contemporary age, is with financial resources, in addition to our time, of course, and our wisdom, our talents.
Well, that's so good. The other thing I'd earmarked to ask you about, and I want to get to the COVID time, you wrote this chapter 9 about the donor development cycle. And, there is a transaction, and there are those that never ask for the sale. And I've been there many times, and one high net worth person looked at me, well, you didn't ask for a sale. I said, it was my first conversation to get acquainted, but he was a businessman. What do you want? And then another one, I'm packing up to leave after I've told him about what I'm doing. He says, don't you want a check? And then he wrote me a check, handed it to me, a lot bigger than I thought. So, and that was about relationship. But this cycle, you go through steps: identification, qualification. There's steps. So talk about the whole process. There is a transaction, but there's a whole lot more to this process.
Well, so yeah, I mean, again, the bottom line is this is about a relationship, and so in the course of a relationship, you go through seasons, and in this particular cycle that we use in the fundraising business, You identify. We have what we call qualify, which means, are these people of capacity? Are these people that have an interest or potential interest in what we represent? Then we cultivate, which is about building a relationship, involving them if possible in the organization. And that can include some charitable giving, but not a gift, let's say, of greater significance. And then as we get to know them, we're able to think about, okay, given what they are interested in, how does that align with what we are about as an organization? What dimensions in our organization would be something that would make sense to them, that they would desire to support? And then we have the conversation about asking. Now, some people are proponents. They say they've never asked for money. They just listen their way to a gift. Talk about listening in a minute, perhaps. But I've always believed, in my practice, to have conversations about money, about scale, about impact, about size. And it might be, with this amount, you can do this, with this amount, you can do this and that kind of thing, and provide some options. But I always want to be working with numbers, because people want to know what they want, what we would like them to do. And my experience has been perhaps more often the opposite of yours, Hugh. If I don't ask, I get something smaller than what I had hoped for. So I've always become one to say, let's talk about money. It's just a part of life. It's how we carry on in this world. And most people want to know what we really, let's get down to the bottom line, Martin, how much you want, that kind of thing. They want to know. And they can say yes, no, maybe so. Or I want to make that happen, but I can't make that happen now, or we're going to have to think more creatively about doing it. I can't write you a check. So I don't know if that's helpful. It gets to what you're after here.
Just probing some of your knowledge. There's a whole process.
If I might,
Yeah.
Hugh. So I've always taught our people, and I've always been one to practice the 80-20 rule, which is listen 80% of the time.
Mhm.
When you think about, and COVID-19 has kind of brought us to a hard stop here in some respects, but when you think about the frenetic pace of life that's only gotten faster and faster and faster during our adult years, had reached the point of sheer lunacy. Was anyone listening to anybody? I think one of the reasons we're such a divided nation is we completely lost the ability to listen, and listen with respect. And what I found in fundraising, and I think many professionals in other fields would say the same thing, if you want success in your life, in your business, in your endeavors, you listen. And so it wouldn't be that I would listen 100% of the time, right? But what I found is people desperately wanted to be heard. They wanted to be listened to attentively, appreciatively, and respectfully. And honestly, I think when I think about, to what extent I was a great fundraiser in my career, it's because of the power of listening. Now, the other piece, I got to ask for money and do all that stuff. But listening puts us in that best position to understand. Now, what I would do is I would retain, record, and retrieve. 3 R's. Retain. Somebody had something to say during the course of the conversation. I was listening closely and thinking to myself, that's important. Record. I get in the car, I call my assistant and say, start taking notes. Or I'd get back to the office and I'd start typing on my computer. And I would record all the various things I thought would be insightful and helpful, not just for me, but for anyone in our organization that would have reason to engage with those people. And then when I would next prepare, preparation, this is all about preparation, this kind of work. When I would prepare for my next visit, I would retrieve. Because the thing is, Hugh, in work like this, we're in front of different wonderful people every day. And over the course, if a month has passed, there's no guarantee I'm going to remember what somebody said that was important to them a month ago. So one way I respect them is by retaining, recording, and retrieving. So that when I return to them, I could say, Hugh, so how's Mary Alice doing? You were talking about that she was facing that surgery. Or Hugh, How's that Billy Goat dog of yours doing? You were worried about this or that. Or Hugh, I understand you finally, you said you were going to be marrying off your son, Charlie. How'd it go? Well, I tell you what, people know I'm representing the organization, but they love the fact that I listened to them as people. I cared about them as people. Now, do you think, Hugh, when it came to talking about a gift eventually, that put me in a better position to be taken seriously? Without question. So, it seems like, geez, well, this is common sense, isn't it? But I think we've lost a lot of common sense.
Well, the only problem with common sense is that it's not very common.
Yes.
So you've mentioned COVID. There's something going on, I think, about COVID. I want to take a minute and say welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. If you're just coming by Facebook or just found us on a podcast, it's a series of interviews for 6 years. We have go to the Nonprofit, THE, Nonprofit Exchange, the nonprofitexchange.org. And you'll find the landing page with this episode and the last one. And every time you go there, there's new material and there's a link for the archives. You can go back and choose topics important for today's nonprofit leaders. And we're going to shift. You mentioned the COVID crisis and how does fundraising impact what we're doing. But I want to mention that we are able to do the work of Center Vision Leadership Foundation because of our corporate sponsors. And today we want to support Easy Card. Easy Card is where you have our organization in your hand. Center Vision Leadership Foundation is a community for people building communities, nonprofit leaders, clergy, Chamber of Commerce presidents, cause-based charities. And Easy Card is easy to get. And if you just pull out your texting program, and I'll tell you again later, so you may want to write it down. You're going to text to this number, 64600, 64600, 5 digits. Go down to the message and put in LDR, short for leader. And you'll get Center Vision's card, and you'll find out all about what we're doing. And soon we'll have a tab up here in a couple of days about a collaboration we're doing on a youth philanthropy conference, building philanthropy in the future. Actually, it's today they're building philanthropy, but it's going to set the bar for the future. And we're bringing in some of our audience here to comment. But let's make a pivot. You talked about some brilliant reframing of some of the old scripts we tell ourselves that minimize our fundraising, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, maybe more. So it's not my job. I teach leadership. So we got a new era coming. We've been in an era where we've been locked down. We're going back to work in Virginia. We're going to restaurants. Churches are sort of meeting, with very lots of rules, very limited engagement, no children, no singing. So there's a whole new paradigm of how the Y is opening up if their exercise classes are in the parking lot, and it's raining all week. So, and then people are getting paychecks for a couple of months from unemployment, but then what if when that money runs out? What? So we're facing some new challenges. So what do you think? How does that impact our fundraising going forward?
Well, I think if you look back to the Great Recession, some sectors did better than other sectors in terms of fundraising during the Great Recession. And, in fact, I might mention that in the Great Recession, I had just come to the University of Missouri St. Louis to take a campaign that was already underway public. And I was there a month, and the economic sky fell, and the whole world was thrown into craziness. Now, it doesn't exactly align up with our situation today, but there's some similarities certainly. And long story short, Hugh, we decided to go ahead with that campaign, and in my first year there, we raised 54% more than any other year in the history of that institution. So when I hear someone say, boy, we can't ask for money now, people don't have it, I immediately say, well, not necessarily true. Now, one thing I would say this is, if somebody's philanthropic and they have less money, are they less philanthropic? I don't think so. Okay, philanthropy is a part of a value system. And so, and let me ask you this about your organization you represent. Has its value proposition changed because of this pandemic? No, it hasn't. Now, if you're a food bank, there might be more urgency, immediacy, and people's interest to do something, because crises brings out people's desire to try and do something for others, whether it's by cutting a check or by cheering on the streets as for the first responders and the nurses, whatever it might be. But people want to be supportive, and one way they're supportive is certainly with their philanthropic support too.
Love it, love it. Would you like to have some questions from our audience?
As long as they're all softballs.
Oh, no guarantees. But there's Jeffrey Fogum. He's from Richmond, Virginia, and he's turned his mic on, and he's a CFRE and has done many really good things. He used to be in Lynchburg, but he moved over to, just a couple hours away. But Jeffrey, thanks for being here today. Do you have a particular observation or a question for our guest today?
Yeah, I don't really have a question, but I love what I'm hearing, Martin. The first thing when I came on just a little bit late, and so I missed the very beginning. But I really liked the part when you were talking about studying, and that's really only part of the equation. And certainly, you can glean all this information, but as you started moving through your presentation, you started talking about relationships, which for me has always been the meat of this business. And it's never more important than it is right now, of letting folks know that we care about them, and you hit that nail right on the head. And that's what I've been preaching to my clients and my associates, is how important it is to stay connected to people, and let them know that this is a relationship, and it's a personal relationship before it's a financial relationship. And I really liked what you said about character too, because I think that's the core of what we're doing. It's certainly the core of leadership. And if you don't have the character, then you probably shouldn't be a fundraiser, and probably shouldn't be in leadership either. And the other thing that you mentioned about evaluating, I thought that was so good. So I used to do that. I didn't start doing it nearly early enough. I wish I'd done it the way you did it. I started getting, and just over maybe the last 5 years, have taken the month of December. And actually, it's been more the month of January, because we're so darn busy in December that we don't have the time. And so I kind of started doing it in January, and doing sort of a post-mortem on the year and on my life. And, how can I do things better? And this is really great stuff. And I'm glad I connected on today.
Well, Jeffrey, first of all, pleased to meet you, and thanks for your great comments. And I'm glad I'm in the ballpark with mine. One of the things, in fact, I just did a podcast on this, and I'm writing a chapter for somebody's book on morning rituals. And every morning, as part of my morning rituals, I have a one-page personal professional planner, I call it, by the way, and I review what matters most about my life. And that is a way for me to get locked and loaded for the day, in order to go forth and have the greatest impact possible. And, certainly as a professional, but as a person, what am I all about as a person? Being able to define that, have it clarified, being able to review it every day, for me, has just been amazingly powerful. One other thing I would say, and, around that word authenticity, we heard earlier, people want to be authentic, and they want authentic people in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to be perfect in our work, but we have to be respectful, thoughtful, and do it the best we can. Fundraisers come in all shapes and sizes and abilities, and people understand that. But what they don't want is a fake. What they don't want is a snake oil salesman. They want a human being, in fact, that they can respect and look up to. That's what they want from us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That authenticity and character and that genuineness. People would ask me about, about having these relationships with people. I said, it has to be a genuine relationship. You can't have a relationship where you want someone to think that it's about the fact that you like them and you want a relationship, but it's really about the money, but you're trying to cloak it so that it looks genuine. And I said, well, it might work for you for a little while, but it's not going to work for you forever. And, if you really want to have successful fundraising, it's about long-term relationships with people. And I'm fortunate. I still am connected to people that I'm 3 or 4 organizations removed from now. And I still have relationships with them, and I still talk to them, and I still email with them, and especially right now with everything that's going on, just try and stay in touch. And boy, that's the fun part of this business. For me, it's the most fun.
I'm bringing Bob. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I'm going to bring in Bob here. But go ahead, Martin. I cut you off. Sorry.
Well, it's, the relationships is the most gratifying part of the deal. It's not about the dollars raised, although that's great too, because it can accomplish great things. No, it's all about the relationship. In our business, we get to meet the most wonderful people, don't we, Jeffrey? I mean, phenomenal people. We're privileged to meet. When I think about, my own personal and professional development, a lot of it was profoundly stimulated by the people I've gotten to spend time with in this work of fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've got to spend time with Jeffrey and Bob Hopkins. You see the horse there. That's his current horse, which is that one is Philanthropy. And Bob knows something about philanthropy. He had a magazine, and then he's published this book here. So, Bob, you've been quietly listening. Do you have a question or comment for our guest today?
Absolutely. Can you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Good. Well, I'm in my backyard outside. Didn't know that I had any airwaves back here, but it's incredible. Beautiful day in Dallas, by the way. And I am loving listening to you. After 40 years of doing this kind of thing, you think you know it all. And while I might say I do, it's so much fun to remember some of the key aspects of the fundraising process. And, when you first started talking, I thought, why doesn't he talk about listening? And then sure enough, the next 15 minutes you talked about listening. And I'm so grateful for that conversation. I teach speech, and I'm teaching people how to talk. But there is a chapter in my book called Listening. And you know what? I spend about 5 minutes on listening because I don't think people need to know anything about it. And I am so wrong, because as you said, the 80-20% thing is so true. And I have so many great stories of when I didn't listen, and you know what? I didn't get the gift. Or when I listened and waited and patiently took my time about receiving, that I got about 6 times more money than I would have gotten had I asked earlier when the person wasn't ready.
It's such a great comment, Bob, and pleased to meet you. I think it's the part of that, we talk about this in a lot of fields, but that blending of the art and the science. And, as I said, developing competency, is about certainly education, but it's about experience. Maybe that's the better way that I would prefer it. But as this is a work you learn on the job. It's on the job training. And as we stick with it, and it saddens me when I think about all the turnover in the profession, because if someone's willing to stick with it and keep at it, as I mentioned, as you well know, Bob and Jeffrey and Hugh, the satisfaction's phenomenal to be in this work, and to become competent at it over time is immensely gratifying too. Beautiful horse, by the way, Bob. Is
That's not his current one. He's got a current one that he's really proud of, and that's his passion. I asked him one day, we were having lunch in Dallas when we first met. I said, "What's your passion?" And he went off on this horse thing. I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
So the Pareto principle is 80-20. 80% of your results are produced by 20% of your people. 80% of your inventory only produces 20% of your profit, but 20% produces 80% of your profit. So probably it goes for donors. It's a repeated principle. When I wrote my first book, Moving Spirits, Building Lives, it's about church musician as transformational leader. So that's where I started moving into the leadership realm. It took me 40 years to write this, and 30 days to put it on paper when I was leaving the profession. But I determined in that book, the Ballou 10-90 principle. I determined as music director, 10% of my job was music. 90% made that possible. So I'm thinking in as far as a professional fundraiser, the 10% is what people see, but the 90%, it's like under the water of the iceberg. 90% is relationship communications, staying in touch with them, that allows that 10% to happen. There's a whole lot that happens that's invisible to most people, but that's where the real hard lifting is. So let's hit real hard on some of this. We still got money in the economy. There's still money. The Fed just printed a whole bunch more digital currency. So money didn't go away. Now, some people are struggling to make ends meet, but some companies are doing really well. And Google had a record-breaking quarter. Grocery stores are just slammed. So I don't know. There's some industries that are really challenged. There's some restaurants going out of business, but there's still money out there, and there's people who want to make a difference. So what's the change in mindset for addressing the new normal here?
Well, I think first of all, in some ways, the mindset hasn't changed. In other words, we have an organization worthy of support that's doing important work in this world. And we are engaging with people that want to make a difference with their lives and with their resources to the extent that they can. Now, they may have had a hit. They may have taken a hit financially. And, they may not be able to do something right now. They may have to structure it differently. Back in the Great Recession, and I mentioned we raised, 54% more than any prior year in the institution's history. That wasn't people writing a bunch of huge checks. People were writing smaller checks. They were making pledges over longer periods of time. They were putting parts of their gifts in their estate and so on. And they bundle it all together, and it would be a number that was not insignificant for them, very significant. But they couldn't do it even today. A year ago, somebody might give you whatever that large number is with a check or a couple of checks over a couple of years. Now they may want to still give you that number or something near it, but it's going to be put together in a whole different kind of package. But what we need to do is be sensitive to with people. And Jeffrey had mentioned it. I think Hugh and Bob, we're all talking the same talk here, that we have to put the people first, concern for the people first, and because there are relationships. And if we treat them that way, whether they can make a gift now, they may or may not, they may be able to make it as much as we would hope or not, but we're building the relationship for the long term. We're doing our job with the relationship by putting them first and their concerns first. I mean, how many of us, we all have stories, we all have connections, a degree or two away from us, but people that have really been profoundly impacted by this. So we should know it firsthand, and certainly we need to be sensitive as we engage with others. Another thing I would say is, when to raise major gifts, it's typically a face-to-face, labor-intensive business, and up until very recently, there hasn't been any face-to-face work. Pretty hard to have an intimate talk with a donor 10 feet apart. But tools like Zoom, even my sister, who just turned 70 years old, knows how to use Zoom now. 80 years old. And, we can all use Zoom, and people welcome Zoom calls, or the equivalent, of course, video calls, because they desire that human interaction. And if we get on a call like this, and we just have a conversation and we listen to them, that's very, very powerful.
It just shows that whoever thought of this stupid term, social distancing, it's really physical distancing, and it's, we're still social. and actually what's playing out is anti-social distancing. I'm going to, before we get off here, is let Bob talk a little bit about youth philanthropy, and maybe from St. Louis, you could be a supporter of what we're going to do in June. But this book is chock full of stuff it's not rocket science, it's not new, but it's really solid experience from people who have been there, done it, and stuff that most of us don't know. Now you guys have been around, you've done this for years, and you've practiced this. See, I'm a musician, we rehearse. So you've rehearsed a lot, and you've gotten it down. And what I'm so appreciative of is you've put it in a book, and you're sharing it with people. So number one, why should people have this book? Why should they get it? And two, where do they get it? And why should they get it? Where can they get it?
Why they should get it is it's a way of staying current in the work. If you're a beginner, it's a insightful introduction to the work, and it's getting 27 experts or seasoned professionals' input, not just one's. I call it 5 minutes for fundraising because each chapter is about a 5-minute read. So, and they're standalone chapters. You don't have to sit and read it in consecutively. So you can go to what resonates or you need right now. In terms of the book, if you want to get autographed book, 15% off, no shipping and handling, go to martinleifeld.com and order it there. Or you can get it, at Amazon and download it, to your Kindle app for $10. So like any book, it's available in multi-channels.
And it's not an expensive book. So I'm going to talk again about some of the stuff what CenterVision's doing, and come back to you, and for you to give a summary, just a kind of summary of what do we need to do going forward in this really different time. But I'll come back to you for that. And I want to encourage people to get their Easy Card. It's the CenterVision Leadership Foundation Easy Card. Just send a text to 64600. Open your text program and just put in up there 2. It says 2, 64600. Then the message put in LDR. You'll get a text back, and you touch the hot link, and voila, you'll have this. And it'll tell you about CenterVision Leadership Foundation. It'll tell you about Nonprofit 360 Magazine, Nonprofit Exchange videos. You just scroll down here, you see there is Martin Leifeld, and this is today's episode. You'll see the video up there. Actually, it's on there right now as we're speaking. And then soon there'll be a tab about Youth Philanthropy Summit. So get your Easy Card, and you know what? Get your own Easy Card. If you want to stay in touch with your donors, with your board members, with your tribe, this is the relationship part. We can't always be there, but you can send them a text. Boom, hey, we're doing a special event on Friday, don't forget. And the current generations are living more on their phones. And if you tell a millennial, put this in your calendar and be there in 2 weeks, they won't come. But if you text them 20 minutes before and say, hey, we're doing something, they'll be there. So it's a whole different reality. So I mentioned that we're going to be collaborating with Mr. Philanthropy, Bob Hopkins. And what Bob has done to inspire students is quite remarkable. And I've interviewed a few of them. So Bob, can you give us like a 2-minute overview of what we're going to expect in this? I think we're calling it a Youth Philanthropy Conference in June 27th.
Exactly, on Saturday morning, June 27th, from, I think it's going to be 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock, so that we can get Eastern Standard and Central Standard and Mountain Time, et cetera, all involved, so it's not too late or early for anybody. But we do a PAVE program, Philanthropy and Volunteerism and Education, every summer. For the first time, we have to go virtual. And so I thought, why not expand? My book is certainly worldly, and I have contacts all over the United States. And I'm just going to give everybody an opportunity to come into this youth and philanthropy deal. And it's going to be led by 4 of our graduates from our program. They're 13, 15, 17, and 22 years old, 2 brothers and 2 sisters who are amazing, and they're going to be able to lead this thing. We're going to have some surprises and some surprise acts. Who knows? We might have Troy Aikman or somebody special like Big Bird come in and do some actual stuff too. But we're starting age 7 to 12 is the first 2 hours, and then after that is 13 years old to 22. And so we're hopefully going to have 100 kids. and then another 100 people who will want to look in and just see what we're doing with kids. And so that's the deal. And Hugh is going to be the moderator. I'm the organizer. We've got 4 kids who are going to be the presenters of the materials, and then their mothers and friends and associates, et cetera, are going to support the effort.
So Martin, if we send you information, would you share it with your network, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah, every one of the students that I talk to that Bob touches is interested in philanthropy and sees a new avenue for themselves. And these kids are just amazing. I say kids; these are adult human beings. They're just younger adult human beings. And Bob has inspired them, and their parents have inspired them. And it's just a whole new. It's current reality. They're today's philanthropists and building a future for tomorrow. And I would like to say that the work of nonprofits today is more important than ever before in history. So this has been a very helpful interview. Lots of good sound bites. It'll be transcribed and up on the site, the Nonprofit Exchange, so people can go and read some sound bites from you. What do you want to leave people with today? What's a challenge or a thought as we go into the unknown?
Well, every day we're going into the unknown, Hugh, and that was 6 months ago too. So every day, it's new every morning, as it says in the Book of Lamentations, those of you who look at the Bible. So what we're after is helping people become greater through philanthropy. We're doing that through putting them first, respecting who they are, helping them to demonstrate their value system to the world. Hopefully by working with our organization as part of their way of doing so. We're privileged, it's honorable work, as I've mentioned, and it's worth people devoting their lives to. If I might, I'd like to quote with, not to highlight myself, but this is very powerful. When I retired 2 years ago, they had a party for me, which is very nice, at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And a number of the donors were there that I had worked with for years. Well, unbeknownst to me, they had a video that, in fact, if you go to Martin Leifeld YouTube retirement, it's on there. But this couple, who were the first alumni in this young university to reach a $5 million level of cumulative giving, were on the video. This is what they said, if I might. And I think it pulls it together and certainly represents so much my gratitude for the work of philanthropy in my life. They said, by teaching us about giving, Martin, you have given us a great gift. Our philanthropic involvement with the university has enhanced our lives on many, many levels. We owe that to you. Martin, because of your professionalism, expertise, and friendship, you made something that is truly enjoyable even more rewarding. You showed us the way to contribute in a meaningful manner, and this resulted in our receiving so much in return. Man,
what a great summary. I want to say
isn't
amen.
that amazing? That's what it's about.
It is amazing. You have touched people's lives on both ends of the spectrum. Yeah. Martin, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today on the
Thank you,
Hugh.